You're listening to Blockchain 2025. The future is right now. Every week, we explore implications of the technology underpinning cryptocurrencies. Blockchain.
Each episode is a standalone examination of one industry broken into 3 segments. A basic overview, blockchain's disruptive impact, and relevant crypto projects.
Blockchain 2025 is part of the Bitcoin.com podcast network. Learn about Bitcoin, create a wallet, and buy your first Satoshis all at Bitcoin.com.
Mr. Kelso, you have chosen quite the topic for today's show.
I have indeed. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition.
Yeah, guns. I mean, what a polarizing topic. I mean, we've already done government and politics, but this one definitely takes the cake.
You brought me on to alienate the entire Bitcoin population, and I think I'm doing a great job. Some people look at metrics and say, are we gaining readership or are we our listenership, or are we pushing them away? And I'm going for the latter.
Yeah, I mean, in the bear market, you gotta have to pull out all the stops, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt about this. Your news and podcast, I'm podcast, right? At Bitcoin.com. The ratings are gonna be a lot better in the next bull run. And when, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Core, Ethereum hit $250, I mean, when these prices drop, public interest also drops, if not more than the price.
Oh, for sure. We've seen that on the news desk as well. We call it the crypto winter, and we're now getting into almost fall here as we leave summer. So, yeah, it's across the board, but my belief is that quality will always bring people back. So, that's what we're focusing on here. It's a little out of the box today, but I think I can make a case for why it's important to talk about.
For sure. So 3D printed guns and the blockchain. The figurehead in the media right now is Cody Wilson, and you recently wrote a piece, which we'll link to, on news.bitcoin.com, calling Cody Wilson Satoshi Nakamoto. So let's start out with that. So listeners that already think you're crazy and they hear you say that, defend your point of view. Well, maybe they'll still think you're crazy, but show them that you have a logical argument there.
Well, we'll start off with kind of the obvious, is that Satoshi Nakamoto is a, pseudonymous. We don't even know if this person ever existed. Cody Wilson exists. Really interesting figure, still a very young guy, only 30 years old. In his early to mid-20s, he almost for shits and giggles, almost out of boredom, as he left the undergraduate world and went on to law school at the University of Texas, which is a pretty darn good law school as those go. He was inspired by Julian Assange and their WikiLeaks idea, and there was a kind of a burgeoning what's called maker movement, where a bunch of tinkerers got together and ended up stumbling into what's known popularly as, I call it a milling machine, but they call it a 3D printer. And Cody kind of thought with his friend Ben, hey, what if we make like a wiki weapon? And, all hell broke loose from there.
And yeah, everyone is aware of the maker movement, which is alive and well, right? All these maker spaces are popping up all over the world. Shenzhen being the makerspace city that kind of creates the gadgets for the rest of the world. And obviously, someone listening right now is going to say, hey, wait a minute, creating guns. This is these very sensitive arguments about school shootings, right? And a lot of times they're conflating arguments because is gun control, quote unquote, going to stop school shootings? And then some people say, well, hey, you're going to be able to, because of Cody Wilson being the pioneer, you're going to be able to print guns on a 3D printer. I think that's the crux of the fear of these types of things going on, at least portrayed in the media. Is that fair to say?
Mm-hmm. And in the interviews I've seen Cody do, he's now acknowledging that that's a legit fear, and he does understand it. It's what it comes down to philosophically, and we're kind of jumping around a little bit here, but I think it's important because this is, as you say, the crux of the matter. What it comes down to philosophically is, do you want freedom or do you want safety? And sometimes it is that stark. It is that binary. It is that black and white. It is that 0 and 1. So he's acknowledged that there's going to be some problems whenever you allow people a certain amount of freedom. And sometimes that requires a bit of maturation, growing up, so to speak.
For sure. And as we've seen, not just with guns, plenty of attempts to quote unquote issue safety interventionist techniques have made things more dangerous.
Prohibition is just one of those subjects that is kind of a Rorschach test for you personally. I'm not a particular fan of, say, opiates or recreational drug use. My addiction is Twinkies, but no one's going after my addiction or my recreational use of Twinkies. Well, at least not overtly. But then again, I don't want to make that decision as far as drugs go for somebody else, whether that's marijuana or the pot, as my mom would call it, or heroin for that matter. I just don't know enough about somebody else's plight to be able to stick my nose in their business. So whether you want to talk about drugs, guns, immigration, whatever it is, straws in my state of California because they're fucking retarded. Prohibition is, do you have the right to make that decision for someone else is what it comes down to. And guns are really, really, really where the rubber meets the road. So we can joke about straws. We can, say, marijuana's cool, but heroin's not. But guns, that really divides people right away.
Yeah. And we won't go deep into all of the for gun and against gun arguments. There's legitimate arguments on both sides, I think. And
right. That's not the point.
But the whole idea of freedom and precedence, I think precedence is really interesting. And you made the case that if Cody Wilson won against the federal government, he sued them and he reached a settlement with them, correct?
Yeah, and he won. He sort of backed into winning, which is kind of interesting because he was losing at the circuit court level kind of tragically. They just sort of begged off on the ultimate questions. So a lot of us thought, well, this is over. He's just not going to get any relief. But going back a tad here. So he essentially what he did, if you've not paid attention to this, you kind of don't know what we're talking about maybe. What Cody Wilson did is he ultimately was able to put CAD files, computer animated drafting or however you want to title it, these digital files online for people to download and then put into their maker machines. And with some molding and so on, you could create a lower receiver or in his case, an entire pistol, which he called the Liberator, out of plastic and fire it. And he was able to do that. He put up these files on his website called Defense Distributed. And immediately the State Department, especially once it got broadcast throughout mainstream media, immediately sent him a cease and desist order saying this was a violation of international gun laws. Now again, he's not selling guns. He's not giving you a gun. He's putting up a file on a website, and you are to download it and do with it what you'd like. They said no. So he complied immediately. And then that led to really years of them just ignoring him because he complied. And so he kept asking for clarification. So how are we going to do this? I believe my rights are being violated. So he just basically took the fight to them and sued them at the federal level. He lost, interestingly enough. But as administrations changed, more people began to look at his argument. They cut a deal with him.
But in spite of that, you still can't download anymore these files from his website.
Right. They've effectively gone after him again in a different way. But just to back up for a second, so he wins even though he loses because the feds cut a deal. They sort of saw, the Department of State saw what was down the road. Wilson, Cody and his cadre there wrapped Cody in the First and Second Amendments of the United States Constitution. So it was a speech issue and a right to bear arms issue. And they were afraid, the feds were, that they would lose ultimately on the merits of the case and then not have any pull at all with regard to Mr. Wilson. So they said, you know what, we're going to do the next best thing here. We're going to cut a deal with this guy. And I'm not sure what concessions they got out of Cody, maybe that he would not make a gun and, a plastic gun and sell it or whatever. But they allowed him to ultimately put the files back up. And like you say, why aren't they there? Well, just as soon as that was announced that he had, quote unquote, won, states attorneys general, so in Washington, Pennsylvania, and a couple other places, they filed for an injunction to stop him because they're afraid their citizens would then be exposed to, quote unquote, danger of these files. So he had to take them down. And then what essentially shut down sort of the back end of the website is that Shopify, this is another thing that we'll get into a little bit later, a payment mechanism, a payment processor, cut him off. So he's in deep doo-doo right now.
Wow. So he won some concessions at the federal level, but at the federal level, they made enough concessions that wasn't a full-blown federal win, and now the states are coming after him state by state. So he's in for a long fight here.
50. So he went from one big dragon, now he's got to fight 50 little ones, right, all over the place. And they're just trying to financially ruin him. It's a war of attrition in a lot of ways in the United States legal system. It's like kissing your sister or kissing your cousin. It's just sort of, no one's ever satisfied. It's just, we won, the federal government usually wins just by, manhandling the person and financially ruining them. And that's the strategy, I believe anyway, they're going after Cody with.
War by attrition. Okay, so people listening are going to say, and myself, I'm a little curious, Kelso.
Yeah.
What does this have to do with blockchain?
Right. So I think that's a very fair question, and it's one that I grappled with because Cody has a intimate relationship with blockchain and Bitcoin in its earliest days. He palled around with Amir Taki and these guys, and they were sort of the early canaries in the mine shaft about the Bitcoin Foundation and where Bitcoin Core was going, that it was consolidating, becoming more corporate. They wanted to keep it punk rock, so they developed a dark wallet, some privacy initiatives, and so on. So he does have legit Bitcoin street cred. So I'm not just pulling some Texas shit kicker out of the clouds here and making him my personal pet case here. So he does have that relevance. So what does his gun project have anything to do with it? So take out the guns. It's a digital file that can be downloaded for free by anybody in the world. So it sounds a lot like a wallet. It sounds a lot like how Bitcoiners in general navigate this world. So what are the arguments? Why do you need that gun? This is 2018. They were talking about muskets back then. Now apply that to some of the arguments we've heard about cryptocurrencies. We have money. Hello. We have the United States, dollar. We have the pound. We have the euro. We have the real. We have, and so on and so forth. Why do you need this? It's all digital. It's all floating. You can use your phone to pay. What are you up to? Why do you need to be your own bank? Very, very similar arguments to that of guns. Why do you need one? And shouldn't you have to register? And shouldn't you have a minder? Very, very, very similar. And I don't think that's a mistake. I think it's on purpose because cryptocurrency's power is in your privacy, your ability to work around the permissionless part of it. And that's what Cody's doing. It comes straight out of that ethos. And it's more than just a parallel. I believe they intersect. And if a precedent, as you so rightly pointed out earlier, is set, and I'm not sure, how they're going to go about doing it, because again, my layman's understanding of constitutional law in the U.S. is that he'll win. What if they do come up with a precedent that can be applied in all 50? I think that's going to be, you may cheer it for guns and go, well, who cares? I don't want yahoos having guns. I think that's going to have a huge, huge impact on cryptocurrency.
Gotcha. So to summarize, basically these digital files, allowing the U.S. government, which is the most powerful government, to restrict these digital files,
right?
Creating your own guns, personal sovereignty, freedom to create something that's already there. Like, Bitcoin is creating money. There already is money. Allowing those types of precedents to be set will make it easier in the future to potentially bring down Bitcoin.
Like you just said, I'll get pushback a little bit, and even people who love, guns and so on, they'll say, come on, man, like no one can destroy Bitcoin. Come on now. Like that's our whole get down, right? That's how we talk to people. And when we sell this idea, you can't snuff this out. It's a honey badger. It doesn't give a fuck. Well, the United States isn't just it's not Vietnam. All apologies to Vietnam. It's not even China, right? The United States swings a gigantic influence over the world. And it's obviously the dollar is the reserve currency. Should the United States go after onboarding and off-ramping, kicking in the doors of the Coinbases, which exist, Coinbase is a physical, fragile entity, shut down ETFs, shut down all sorts of mainstream trading, literally make crypto illegal. Should it do something like that, move in that direction, which it's not now? You may say, oh, well, it's not crushed. There's still Bitcoin trading at, 5 cents or whatever. Okay, awesome. But that's not, for all intents and purposes, the United States could crush this. And, again, I don't want to sound like Alex Jones or some of these idiots, But I do think that Cody is the canary in the mine shaft, that if you let this go, if you don't support this dude as a crypto enthusiast, which I think you might have a vested interest in doing, don't be surprised when they use the precedents. We have Ross Ulbricht right now rotting, right? And all that guy did, according to the legal documents, was set up a website and allow people to exchange. And they held him responsible for what other people did. So you can imagine what the hell they're going to do to Cody. Anyway, that's my point. And I think the parallels are there. And I think it behooves us to take this idea seriously, whether or not we believe in the gun idea.
I like that. And Kelso, just what happens all the time in the news all around the world is we're paying attention to a topic, but the angle of the news is maybe not the important one.
Sure.
And with Cody Wilson, it seems like you're saying that the presidents for Bitcoin and other digital freedoms, right? And we've seen this with a lot of laws passed where with Edward Snowden, government, Facebook, government being able to get all your data and all these things that infringe on your personal liberties. So maybe it's not so much like the media, it's, Cody Wilson is kind of this whack job out of Texas,
right?
But who wants guns, right? But it's more about digital files and freedom, which could carry over to Bitcoin. And that's what we need to pay attention to. And I'm glad you wrote that article, because that is, if it's been mentioned in the media, I haven't seen it, but it's definitely not the central argument going on right now.
No. And the media's job is not to enlighten so much as it is just to, kind of get eyeballs and sell advertising. And as long as you understand that, you understand their natural inducements, their natural incentives to kind of tell the more hysterical parts of the story. But I'd like to get Issa here to play a clip for us that runs a little long, about a minute 10, minute 15 seconds. But I think listeners will, better appreciate what we're getting at. So at the core of this, I'm going to go back, even though I said it's not about guns, I'm going to go back to guns just for a second, because I don't want to leave listeners off the hook thinking that I don't believe it is about guns. It is, in part. Before we go too much farther, let's let Roger Ver, the CEO of Bitcoin.com, kind of explain the rationale behind the Second Amendment and those liberties. Go ahead, Issa.
I used to be American. So in America, there's this thing called the Second Amendment. And the Second Amendment guarantees people's right to bear arms. It's not about being able to go hunting. It's not about shooting guns when you go camping. It was literally so that people could shoot government agents if they needed to. And and if you think it's crazy talk to say that like people should be able to shoot government agents and people should never, ever, ever shoot government agents, ask yourself, should America still be part of the United Kingdom? Should it still be part of England? Right? Because that's how America was born. Americans literally started shooting tax collectors and government agents and said, we're not going to be a part of your government anymore. And so that's what the Second Amendment was all about, was so that literally people had the ability to say no to government agents and say, no, I'm not going to participate. And in this video, I'm not advocating that people go out and shoot government agents, but I'm saying that was 100% for sure, without any dispute. That was the intent of the Second Amendment, was to give people the ability that if the government gets out of control, and that's for people out there to decide when that line in the sand is, giving people the ability to say, no, I don't consent, and if you try to force me, I have the ability to defend myself. So that's what it was all about, and I think we need more of that sort of ability for people to defend themselves around the world.
He doesn't mince words. The Second Amendment is not for hunting. It's maybe particular to the United States, but this idea that people have the right to this information to defend themselves, we believe at Bitcoin.com, it's fundamental. It's not arguable. It's not up to vote or whim or whatever else, that there is a fundamental right to defend yourself against tyranny. And this is another part of the Cody Wilson struggle. So we have it on a bunch of different levels here that you can jump in on. One is the speech issue. And as we feel that'll be a precedent to go after Bitcoiners in the future. The other is the Second Amendment issue and just being able to defend yourself. And either way that you find philosophically fulfilling, it goes back to supporting Cody Wilson. And he's the only guy that's brave enough to do this.
Yeah, there's no doubt that this guy is brave because, man, going up against the federal government, all 50 states, that's some scary stuff.
He's going up against the world.
Yeah. Okay.
when you think about it, this is you do have to put on your big girl panties for this one. You have to be sober when you look at it because the guy is heavy. He's not some, some weirdo that's talking about everybody should have guns. There's more to it. He is Talib's skin in the game made flesh. He's Satoshi Nakamoto in the sense that he's bequeathing onto the world something that can't be taken back. So you'll often hear him say, well, the debate is over, so coming in here and getting upset at his office or whatever, there are downloadable files right now. Right now, you're not going to stop this. You can try, but they're already available. People can do this. Very, very similar to the arguments of Bitcoin. But going back on Cody himself in particular, he was headed towards law school. He was probably going to get an MBA or something, match it with his JD, and go on and live a very comfortable upper middle class life. That's gone. That is gone no matter what happens. So these are the kind of guys that I feel are, somewhat heroic, and they put themselves out there and they're all in.
Hold on, Kelso, can you elaborate really quick on why that's gone? You think this is just his reputation, the fact that he's going to be in legal fights for a long time, that
yes,
it's going to be very, very difficult for him to get back?
He destroyed any kind of professional life in 2013, 2012 by just simply coming out with this. Hiring him would probably be the death of your company, considering, how sensitive gun control issues are in the United States and really, really around the world. To have somebody arguing this is a fundamental right is just not a popular argument right now. Anyway, again, I don't want to get too lost on the gun thing because though I feel strongly about it, I feel like it muddies the waters. I want people to know that at Bitcoin.com, Roger on down, we're not shying away from the gun issue. But at its core, this is about information and about your ability to access it without a minder. And that ruffles me. I don't want someone sitting over my shoulder deciding what kind of information I have access to. That's the point of the internet. That's the point of Bitcoin. That's the point of really scientific inquiry when you get right down to it. Once you set the precedent that someone like Cody Wilson can be snuffed out, that does not bode well for the future. So I believe his fight is every crypto enthusiast's fight.
Interesting. And I'd like to add two comments here. One is, Cody Wilson, Ross Ulbricht, Roger Ver, these are extreme examples in the sense that to stand up for something that you believe in that's contrary to the tide of just, we'll say, the world, whether you call it the agenda, which may or may not be correct, but just, what's popular and what's accepted by the world.
Right.
This happens with a lot of great entrepreneurs and activists. They, for 2 years, for 10 years, have to champion an unpopular idea, which is psychologically very difficult. A lot of people bring up Peter Thiel in this case, and it's not easy. I don't think most people can do it. And Kelso, you and I, we're just two people at Bitcoin.com, but we're attached to this type of movement.
Right.
And I'd say, not being mainstream figures by any means, but you and I, that's something that we do have to face working at Bitcoin.com, and the types of ideas that we discuss on this podcast are not for everybody. And I wouldn't change that for the world because I think it's important to speak about what you believe in, but I have to recognize that, we've definitely pigeonholed ourselves away from a lot of different types of jobs and careers that are available.
It's really one of the main reasons why I think everybody should love Bitcoin.com. And of course, I'm a homer, right? I'm on the payroll. I'm a shill. So, I'm not going to hide that. I get paid very, very, very well and treated extremely well. But beyond that, I don't have to say the following. Like, no one's pushing me to say the following. I don't have to say it, which is that this company goes out of its way to adhere to principle, which is bringing economic freedom to the world, which is then encased in kind of the voluntarist idea that you control and own your own life. Now, you can go and get your Bitcoin somewhere else. You can get your news somewhere else. You can see Bitcoin as just a pure speculative play. You can love the science project aspect of blockchain tech. That's all wonderful. To me, it's a little medicinal, a little stale, unless it is surrounded by what is the fucking point of what we're doing. So if you just want to make money, that's fantastic. I'm a go-go capitalist. Go make money. What are you going to do with it? What's the point here? And why I so admire Roger, even though he can be a polarizing figure at times, is that say whatever you want about the guy. He is not doing this to make friends. He's doing this because he really, really believes in it, and he's gathering a cadre of people. We're almost 100 strong now at Bitcoin.com. We're growing like freaking crazy. So there is an appetite for this idea that you're a company that wants to make money, but you're also a company that wants to impact the world in a way that kind of unleashes human potential. And this may sound ridiculous and a little pie in the sky, but I swear to you on everything that I own, this is exactly why we get up and do things. People at Bitcoin.com, I don't think any of us sleep. We're just working round the clock to make things better in terms of how we service our customers and the people that interact with us. And again, I don't want to get into an infomercial for Bitcoin.com, but I do want people to understand that this is fundamental to Bitcoin. So if you're going to hate on Bitcoin.com, hate it for the right reasons.
For sure. I'll add to that some non-controversial stuff that Bitcoin.com donates a lot of money to charity, including BCH, which is just because of the subversive controls on regular fiat currency, reaching people in South Sudan and Venezuela and getting them, which I think is non-controversial. So we do that too. But yeah, Kelsey, I think you make a great point. And listen, this show is all about learning about a nascent technology. And so we're always open to opinions, and especially if you can make arguments that will change our points of view because you know something that we don't, or if there's flaws in our argument, we want to hear it. Send an email to podcast@bitcoin.com. And yeah, we're constantly trying to learn and get better at what we do. But Kelso, this is a really interesting episode. I'm glad we got to go a little bit deeper into Bitcoin.com and the values of the company.
Yeah, and live today as we're recording it here in mid-August, freedom.bitcoin.com is up and running. Go over there, check it out. I don't think you're going to find anything like this on the web. A company that's putting its Bitcoin cash where its mouth is. And you'll see a place to donate to Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed to help in their legal battles, because we do see this as a parallel, as something that is vital to our broader ecosystem and community. So get over there to freedom.bitcoin.com and give it a look.
Yeah, matching donations up to $200,000, I believe, or maybe more, but at least $200,000 to Cody's fund.
Jesus. Yeah. And it's again, it's one of these things where you don't have to give a lot, but if you give a little, you've got some skin in the game now, and you're going to help a good dude, regardless of his politics. His heart is in the right place, and I think he's going to carve out a little bit of freedom in a decidedly unfree world. And I think we can definitely all get behind that on some level.
For sure. All right, listeners. Well, thanks for tuning in. And what a thought-provoking topic to bring onto the show. Thanks a lot, Kelso.
Hey, man, thank you so much for letting me rant here. And I had to kind of drag Matt into this one because it's not, immediately relatable to blockchain. And he graciously allowed me to do this. So I really appreciate it. Head on over to news.bitcoin.com and read all the goings on with Cody. And until next week, guys, see ya.
How do you prefer your crypto news? If it's through your headphones, then you'll love this podcast. This Week in Bitcoin is an easy-to-digest news summary published every Friday with a length of 15 minutes or less. Subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Bitcoin.com podcast network.
Thanks for listening to the Bitcoin.com podcast network. To learn more about our shows, visit bitcoin.com/podcast. Bitcoin.com podcast network.